Hi, and welcome to this edition of MyMetroTV.com Daybreak. First stop to the rest of the weekend. I'm Frederick Knight. Thank you for joining us today. Coming up on today's show, with the GOP presidential nomination in full swing, South Carolina's coveted first in the South primary has come under attack. Mike Bailey spoke with the state's GOP executive director to find out what they're doing to maintain their position. Also coming up on today's show, in observation of National Breast Cancer Awareness Month, we caught up with two organizations who are participating in the effort, and our own Leah Pettis sat down with Mahogany Me to find out how they're utilizing fashion to forward the effort. Also coming up, Kayla Harmon reviews Jonathan Green's Off of the Wall and Onto the Stage. All that and more coming up on this edition of MyMetroTV.com Daybreak. First stop to the rest of the weekend.
The Florida Republican Party's recent decision to move their presidential primary to January 31st has set off a political version of musical chairs as early primary states scramble to move their primary contest up to protect their coveted position. Traditionally, the RNC only allows Iowa, New Hampshire, Nevada, and South Carolina to hold primary or caucuses before March 6. I recently sat down with Matt Moore, Executive Director of the South Carolina Republican Party, to gain some perspective about the changing GOP primary calendar. Mr. Moore, explain to us the importance of South Carolina keeping its first in the South primary status.
South Carolina has a long and storied tradition of picking the eventual Republican presidential nominee, beginning with Ronald Reagan in 1980. He won that primary and then went on to win the nomination. Kind of in an upset in a way. So South Carolina has picked the correct nominee since then. This primary brings a bright, positive spotlight on South Carolina that, in a state with some bad news sometimes, it's really a good thing.
What are some of the reasons that, in your opinion, that Florida's GOP would move their primary up?
It's all about relevance. You know, this primary, especially this cycle, is watched internationally. It's a chance for a state to have that bright spotlight on them, a chance for the voters in that state to get their concerns heard, discuss the really important issues with the presidential candidates. So that's why Florida has attempted to move up, and we moved ahead of them. We've said all along that South Carolina is an easy state to campaign in. You can go from the coast to the mountains over to the PD all in one day. It's a relatively cheap state to campaign in. The media markets are relatively small. But look at Florida. You know, Florida, if it costs $3 million to run a campaign here, it costs $30 to run a campaign there. So what the party has tried to avoid for a number of years now is having a de facto national primary day, which really hurts underfunded candidates, long shot candidates. We are first, South Carolina is first, and the other three states, Iowa, New Hampshire, and Nevada, are first because it gives those underdog and underfunded candidates a chance to kind of ramp up their campaigns before, say, running in a state like Florida where it's so expensive.
How could Florida's decision to move its primary affect candidates that are running in the primary this season?
Well, what it's done is it's really compressed the calendar, and a compressed calendar hurts, like you said, the candidates and the voters. From a candidate's perspective now, it's a lot more expensive to make it past January 31st, which is when Florida's primary is. You know, originally Florida would have gone March the 6th or thereabouts. Now you've lost a month of fundraising, and you've got to have a huge and massive campaign war chest to go down a campaign in Florida. So I would expect a number of candidates, if they don't do well in Florida on the 31st of January, to drop out, and that's unfortunate. You know, this election is too important for Republicans to get wrong. We've got to pick the right candidate that can beat Barack Obama. And compressing the calendar in January, it really hurts not only the candidates but the voters in terms of them getting to ask questions.
What are some of the benefits to South Carolina's economy by having the first in the South primary?
Well, we've commissioned a couple of studies over the years, and for example, in 2008, when both Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, and the Republicans were campaigning here, there was a fiscal impact, impact of out-of-state dollars growing our economy of about $50 million. So a huge impact on the economy. Now, this cycle, granted, it's just the Republicans, so the number will be under that, but still in the tens of millions of dollars that these candidates bring to South Carolina. They spend money on TV ads, they spend money on staff, they spend money on hotel rooms and at restaurants, holding events across the state. So beyond the voters getting a chance to ask important questions, this primary really brings a lot of positive economic development to South Carolina.
The primary will be held January 21st, 2012.